if I did it wrong, no one's like, good try on that one, man. I know you worked hard on that, but we just lost 2 million. It's
Mm,
okay. You worked hard. That's not how it works in the professional world. No
mm,
one cares about how many hours you put in to actually get to the right answer. They
mm.
just care about the right answer. If we fail, I'm taking you with me. I lost your money. If I failed, I failed. It's okay. But now I'm going to take your money with me. Wow. Right. So that's hard.
Mm.
So that's where a lot of people don't, a lot of people aren't willing to take those type risks.
Welcome back or welcome to Grateful and Full of Greatness. I'm your host, Mark Lucini. On this podcast, I sit down with guests who, in my opinion, live their lives with the pursuit of greatness in mind. This platform allows me to discuss and to explain strategies that go into reaching peak performance. This is episode 60. My guest is Kyle Sweeney, recently inducted into both the Professional and United States Hall of Fames. Kyle is one of the best long stick midfielders to ever play lacrosse. Former member of Team USA, gold medalist, multiple time Major League Lacrosse champion, National Lacrosse League veteran, and pro for over 14 years. Kyle graduated from Georgetown University and went on to become a founding partner and COO of the still prevailing brand, Maverick Lacrosse. After selling Maverick to a private equity company, Kyle moved on to become the COO of the largest geothermal installer in North America, Allied Geothermal. As COO and managing partner of Allied, he oversees operations of the company and over 200 employees. I played my rookie season with Kyle back in 2016 for the Chesapeake Bayhawks, so this episode is really special for me. Kyle is respected throughout the whole world of lacrosse for his contributions to the game and the position of LSM, as well as his leadership and integrity. So, without further ado, Kyle, thanks so much for taking the time.
My pleasure, buddy. So good to see you. Good to see you.
Likewise.
We wish it was in person like it was in Florida a couple months back, but
Well, we'll be soon. A Philly guy moves to
so,
Jersey, and I'll make my way back up to my roots to see you. So you came
yes,
on
sir.
to our Premier Lacrosse League as a speaker several weeks ago, and I was taking
Yes.
notes. And one of the things you shared with me was what Coach Urich shared with you, and you said this quote: "You go from who's who to who's he to who cares." Do you mind just starting there and elaborating on what that means to you?
Sure. Yes. So Coach Jurek is, one of the greatest men I've ever interacted with, and he's still with us. So I don't mean to say it in past tense, but I don't get to spend as much time with him or talk to him as much as he's aging. He had a great line, and it was always about he said, "You stand on the shoulders that of those that came before you." So, and then with that, he would always explain to us that we needed to have appreciation and gratitude for the people that played at the institution prior to us, specifically at Georgetown, because Georgetown was not a program of prominence. It was not a program that people thought associated with top level lacrosse. And then when, the next generation, the Greg McCavers, the Steve Dussaults, the Brody Merrills, my class of people, when we went there, we took it to a whole new level. And but there was a lot of work that those guys did in the previous year. So when they would come back, you would always say, "Hey, make sure you look at these guys with respect and you appreciate them for what they did, because without them, this program is not here and you aren't here." So his line was, "You go from who's who to who's he to who cares," and it happens really quickly.
Mm.
And you don't get it when you're in college, because in college you're sitting there, you're like, "Oh, who's it? Who's it? Whatever." Okay, and then all of a sudden you're like, "Wait, who's he? I remember him. He played here a couple years ago." And then real quickly it goes to, who cares? And it's the real deal. I mean, I've been out of the league since 2018, and I played 15 years. When I retired, no one had ever played more games. I would bet you, if you polled the league right now, under 30% knows who I am, and they should. It's not about us or the previous generations. I mean, you should have some sort of respect and appreciation for that, but not on a name by name basis. This is about them. This is their time. This is a time for them. They're ready to go, and that's the type of perspective that I've gained over time. Is because when you're in it, you do believe it's about you. You do believe that everything should go the way it needs to go for you, but it's not. And Yeah, so that Coach Urick's, I used that in my Hall of Fame speech and got a big chuckle out of it. I used several of his one-liners. He's got plenty. I'm probably going to say some throughout this pod, because I use it in everyday life. The kids on my lacrosse team, they hear it. The teams that I coach, they hear it all the time, and they don't even
Mm,
know. They don't even know who Coach Urick was or is, and
mm.
what he did, and that he won 11 straight national championships at Hobart, which is like the craziest. You can't even get your head around that. 11 straight.
That's kind of John Wooden numbers, and I guess I want to stay there for one more beat because Brody brought him up with such reverence as well, and I was just sharing with a mentor of mine this quote or idea that I came across, which is you teach what you know, but you reproduce who you are. So I guess I would just have you talk a little bit more about Urick, because during that league call, you shared 2 or 3 lines from Urick, and then Brody brings in 2 or 3 lines. So what was it about the guy that you guys have such reverence for him?
Well, he was very real. I'll tell you that. Like, so in a world where people being real is fleeting, he was very real, and there was no games about him. He was. I don't want to talk about like he's past. He is a very. But when I was there, he was a very quiet man, but very direct. So there were no. You never walked out of a meeting with him unclear of what he was trying to get across. He was not dancing around the words. He was also just a very generous and loving person too. You know, like
Mm.
when you go to school, like you're not with your parents anymore. So he like truly, it was pre-cell phone time too. So like he truly was like your dad while you were away.
Mm.
You know,
Mm.
so great dude. But so he was very very funny. His one-liners are he's well traveled and he comes from different backgrounds. And what I enjoyed about him is he had the ability to fit in with, we're at Georgetown University, right? This is, presidents attended there, right? We had the president of the United States speak there every single year. We have trust fund kids, we have boarding school kids, and then we've got blue collar kids like myself that have two parents that were teachers, right? And it didn't matter. He understood that wasn't what it was about. It was about the people and the relationships. And he was able to break down any differences of who you were, could be race, socioeconomic, um, geography. And we were all, he just made it all one big family. It was awesome.
Well, I mean, the fact that you moved to tears about it just it got stunned me for a bit, because I have a few people in my life that are just like that. And when I was listening to a guy named Josh Waitzkin, who wrote the book The Art of Learning, he was brought in by Google to give this speech, and he almost said this line as a trailing thought, but he said, the best definition of wisdom I've come across is tolerance for cognitive dissonance, which means holding two counter ideas at the same time and having a tolerance for that. And when you share about Urick and you say he's not dancing, he's very clear, he's very direct, at the same time he's loving and generous, I think that's the ultimate wisdom that I see in a guy. And then you brought up your parents as well, and I guess I would ask you one more time about the Kyle Sweeney. Could you set the stage of before the who's who? Maybe you're growing up in Philadelphia. Was it always lacrosse for you? And before Urick, who were your earliest influences?
So definitely my parents. My parents worked all the time, and I didn't know. I've said this to my children and to my wife for sure. Is my parents just worked all the time, so I didn't think they were hardworking. I didn't think they were lazy. That's just literally all I knew. They worked. Both my parents were teachers. My father bartended in the evenings, and my mom managed a restaurant during the summer. And it was all so they could give us what they thought we needed and wanted. So like I never knew that back then you didn't travel. There was also no internet. You didn't really get outside of your bubble. So I didn't understand the vast differences of socioeconomic levels until I got to college. So from back to what started is all I ever saw them do was work. My dad would work. Then when he could fit coaching us in, he would. And he would go work more. He would build his bartending schedules around our practices. And then when he wasn't around, I would see, or when he had free time, I'd see him running and exercising. And like, that is all I knew about them, is that they were just super active. And anyone who knows me now knows that I'm incredibly active. And if you ever called me lazy, that might be the only thing that would actually get me to the point where we would have an argument, right? Because like, and anyone who actually knows me knows that they can never even use that term, because I don't know, the word. So I do. I think that was a huge. That's all I knew. I'm not sure if it was intentional with my parents. I don't think they're not. They're very, very smart people, but they're not deep thinkers in that sense of like. I don't think they were trying to set some sort of example for me. It just came organically of, hey, this is what we are. This is what we do. This is who we are. We're hardworking people. And, and by default, that just kind of got set in. I just picked it up through osmosis.
That was how you left us on the league call. You said hard work and disciplined are not learned traits. They are learned traits. They're not born. And I don't know if this is a Kyle Sweeney quote, but I'm going to throw it out there and you tell me you can jazz with it. You said, don't talk about it, just do it. In the professional world, no one cares what it took to get the positive result. They only care about the positive result. Do you want to talk about that one?
Sure. I think I just made that up on the fly, but it's the truth. And specifically, if you want to relate it to sports, or it doesn't matter what you're relating it to, good try. Like, oh, nice swing, Johnny. Like, when on a strike like that, I understand that when with youth, you're trying to build confidence in them and then explain to them that what they did was right. The result wasn't. And I teach the kids all the time. I don't care about the result right now. Do it the right way, and that's all I care about. If we do it the right way and the result is negative, I'm okay with that. You do it the wrong way and the result's positive, it doesn't do anything for me. Well, when you get to the professional world, the result is all that matters. The good try is gone. That's out the window. Like when you're putting together, for my work, a big part of what I do is math, tons of building models out. And if I built the model wrong, we might lose a couple $1 million. Even though my effort was the same on one where I did it correctly. If I did it wrong, no one's like, good try on that one, man. I know you worked hard on that, but we just lost $2 million. It's okay. You worked hard. That's not how it works in the professional world. No one cares about how many hours you put in to actually get to the right answer. They just care about the right answer. And in sports, we see it all the time. Like Greg and I went to high school together. Granted, I'm not sure if you know that. So,
I do know that.
Greg had a great line one time. He's like, can you please stop telling me you're the hardest working guy on the team? We all work hard. He's like, we all work hard. It doesn't matter. And it was I don't know if he heard that or made it up himself, but the hardest working guy in the room, like never outworked, like that bothers him, because someone like him, like he does work really hard. I mean, he's a psychopath. He's insane. And I know why, and I know his father, and I know what drove him to work really hard. Similar, same town, same background, same socioeconomic status. But for him, like, and he and I would talk about this as I was losing my abilities in the league. I was on year 14 and 15. I was like, it's crazy, man, because I'm still working hard, and I'm actually working harder than, and I won't use any names, but some of the young guys in the team. Some guys coming in a little soft and not taking care of their body, definitely, having more fun socially than I was. I had 3 kids or whatever. They were definitely sleeping better than I was, but I was still putting all the work in both training and then, but my results weren't as good as theirs. So nobody cared. And I know, like Joe Spallina, he's not a close friend of mine, but he's a friend. And he had to tell me, he's like, you're not putting it out there right now. And I wanted to say to him, I'm working hard, but I knew better, because it wasn't. It didn't matter what I was doing. The young kid from Chapel Hill was putting it on. He was putting better tape out there than I was. So,
right.
Yeah. So that's kind of the thing I was trying to relate to the young guys, is it doesn't matter. Like the effort, it matters to you, and but no one else cares about the effort.
Right. Like, and it's the results oriented business at that point.
Every business is. what business is not a results oriented business?
Well, Little
You know,
League is what I'm saying.
yeah,
Little League.
right. But that's not a business. Like I look at it like I'm applying this to um, the private sector, the public sector.
Sure.
Take it even down to like, what applies to all of us, education. If the teacher's trying really hard and she's not effectively getting through to the students and they're testing poorly, well,
Mm,
time to go. New regime,
right.
right?
Totally.
Even though, and it's a shame because not everyone is gifted with the same abilities, specifically cognitively and intellectually, right? Like there are things that you and I did to work hard to get into the institutions we got into, but we also have friends that put in a lot of that work and weren't as gifted intellectually, just from Jump Street, right? Based off of their
Sure.
gene pool.
Sure. And I guess we could circle back at any time to the childhood aspect of you, and I think it could be summarized with that work ethic. I do want to talk about that transition from Georgetown to pro, and take us inside that because the work ethic was there, and I know for me it was a mixture of strength and conditioning, athleticism, and then the mental performance aspect. What was it for you, Kyle, that you were able to go now from Georgetown playing at such an elite level to pro and then eventually Team USA?
It was a transition for sure, but I think it was a little easier for me because of like I said, because of like what I learned. And this is where college sports are so important to me in terms of time management. And when you move to New York City and you have an apartment and you work, so I was working in finance wearing a suit, and then when the day's over, you're done at 5 o'clock, 4:30 some days. You got all evening, right? You've got so much time. I see how, and there's a lot of temptations in Manhattan. I see how people that don't have anything that they're kind of required to work towards from a fitness and a taking care of your body standpoint, I can see how there's a little bit of a deterioration and there's a little bit of indulging, if you will. Um, so for me, it was just kind of, I knew what had to get done and to be able to, and I also had goals, right? I wanted to play in that league. It wasn't like, for me, some of those guys, we interacted with them. Some of the guys that are, cup of coffee because they're working jobs, they're like, you can tell they don't really care and want to be there. So I wanted to be there. I wanted to be good at it. I broke my ankle with like 3 weeks left in my senior year. So I felt, I wasn't looking for pity, but I felt like I left some unfinished business.
Mm,
Definitely I don't want to say let my teammates down, but it was tough for us to do well in the playoffs without one of their starters. So I had work to get done. So for me, it wasn't as difficult as you would think. I just made it scheduled. I have rules and structure to everything I do, because I believe it works. And once we talk about the transition post college, I'll tell you about some of the things I had to do for myself to keep myself in check as a non-playing old adult. But so I would jump right into, I would work, I'd go to the gym, get the work done. And then, okay, after work, I can go home, sit with my roommates, watch Yankee games. The one thing we could talk about it now is when you're an adult, what you eat and what you drink, or when you drink, if you consume alcohol, it's a struggle for a lot of people because if you don't have reasons to set rules and schedules and guidelines, it can get out of hand for sure. So I would be rolling back into my apartment on a Tuesday night, just worked out, and Yankee game was on. These guys are Yankee fans, and they're having a couple beverages, and I had to have first of all the willpower and the discipline to be like, no, I can't. I got to first of all, I got to work in the morning. Plus, we're flying out on Thursday to go here. I just can't do it. And yeah, so that's how I adjusted to it decently. It didn't really struggle. I worked during the day, worked out at night, set a schedule. If you don't set a schedule, I think not working, these guys that are full-time pro lax guys right now, I think they probably struggle a little bit because, or it might be more, I shouldn't say struggle, it might be more difficult for them because when you have all day to just work out,
mm,
how does it become routine? Where's your,
Mm.
well, tomorrow I'm at 9 a.m. I'm going to do it later on Thursday, but that like, that works for some people. It doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm, I mean, Kyle, all I'm hearing from you, even in the willpower side of things, it all stems on having a powerful goal that pulls you, right? Jim Rohn once
that's right.
said, a fuzzy future has little pull power. So if you don't see yourself in the future, you'll get drift into anything. So I think when you talk about your time management and the standards you set for yourself and the willpower you had, I think it's because you had that clarity of vision. There's a psychologist that makes this, I guess, a little bit facetiously, but definitely honestly says there's nothing better than alcohol. It makes you completely present. You know, you're right there with everything, right? All your stresses go out the window. He said the only thing that comes close is having an adventure with like-minded people that you're going on, and you can't be hungover for that. And I think that's a good way of looking at it because there is that short-term hedonic pleasure that comes from it, right? But what you were after, especially coming off of the broken ankle, is really powerful. So I want to say one thing about the unfinished business, and then double click on what you just said. Unfinished business makes me think of, I was listening to a Coach's Rules for Life by Dawn Staley, the
Of
U.S.
course.
women's coach in South Carolina. She missed this
Philadelphia
game.
girl, by the way. Don't
Of
sleep on
course,
her being a Philly girl.
I don't think that she lets the whole world know that she misses a game-winning layup for Tennessee, right, in the national championship, and that was steam and fuel for her to go coach at the veracity that she has. So I like this idea of unfinished business. I think everybody I've had on this podcast so far has that at least mentality of unfinished business, whatever they're pouring themselves into. So the timeliness of 2 hours ago, Bloomberg just put out an article about how lacrosse players, and this was pushed by the Premier Lacrosse League, how lacrosse players are juggling both. You were in a different era, though. There was no health benefits. There wasn't a little bit higher salary, and there wasn't that social platform to build your brand. So I guess I would go back to the well one more time and say, yes, you had unfinished business, and you had these dreams of playing that sport and wanting to be there. But how'd you do it when there wasn't the tangibles that are now there for the pro lacrosse player?
And this is not gonna resonate with the younger generation, but it's gonna resonate with the older generation. I wanted to do it for me because I wanted to prove to myself that I was better than those guys. I had a crazy, and this is all, when you look at all the people that are very successful, generally, they all have the same completely irrational confidence in themselves and what they're going to do. And I was talking to Brody about this. I was talking to Brody about this last year. We were going to play the undefeated, again, it's all youth sports now. I'm coaching this travel basketball team, and we're going to play a team that's undefeated, and they beat us by like 13. And in youth basketball, like 13's like losing by 40 in the NBA. And I was talking to Brody the night before, and I was like, it's weird. I was like, I know we're gonna win. I was like, I know we're gonna win. And he's just like, I said, like, I am positive we're gonna win. Now, granted, we did not win. I assure you, we didn't win. But I knew I was gonna win. I knew these boys were going to win, and we didn't. But the point is I went into that game with that irrational confidence of, I don't care who's on the other side, we're going to go do it. So that said, when I was starting to play, I never stepped on the field once I started playing lacrosse. I didn't start playing lacrosse till 7th grade, but I never stepped on the field in lacrosse and felt like I couldn't do it. I knew, especially like after my freshman, sophomore year, I knew I was, this sounds, I guess we can be open here. I knew I was better than everybody. I just knew it. And I was like, I can do this. So once I got to the league, as soon as I got there, they were like, all right, first game, your matchup is number 22 on the other team. Okay. That guy's name was Gary Gate. And I was like, okay, here we go. Right. So like, we're right into it. So, and I did really well that day, and my first game ever. And then I just wanted to get better and make it better and prove to these guys. I was like, wait, hold on. That guy made an all-star game? No, hold on. I can do that. Who'd you guys just name defensive player of the year? I don't think he's that good. I think I'm better than him. Okay, let me just keep working at it, right? And that's all it was to me. Like, I didn't, because the result to me mattered, and it was my wife talks about this. She's like, man, I feel like you were just too early in the sport. Like, it's a shame. Like, when you were cooking the way you were cooking at like 30, 32, like she's like, you be friggin' this person here. And I was like, it's okay. Like it's okay. Like I don't need it because I have it all up here. Like I know what I did. And meeting and interacting with people that you played against as you get older that speak fondly about you or to you, and that's all it's worth now, right? It doesn't matter. None of this matters. But I'd rather be me, to be honest, than someone with a much shorter career and a lot less success, but a lot more fame. The fame doesn't matter to me because it wasn't an option. That's the other thing too. I don't want to sit here like an old. That's why I don't want to sit here like an old guy and be like, I didn't need that fame. Well, no shit, I didn't need it. It wasn't even an option. It wasn't an option. It wasn't there. So am I going to say I wouldn't have enjoyed it? No, I'd be lying to you.
Right.
I'd be lying. I don't know what I would have done, to be honest. But when you're young and full of confidence like that, everybody loves praise, right? I have a 9-year-old daughter. Like she loves to be told that she did the right thing or she did it right or good or something, So that matters. Most humans like praise. And
of course,
that would have been something that I'm not sure how I would have managed it and dealt with it, but it wasn't an option. So I just keep moving. But what I do know is that wasn't a motivating factor for me at the time because it didn't exist. The motivating factor for me was only to be better than everyone else because I wanted to do it. I wanted to prove it. I wanted to say, and I remember one time it was after the 2006 tryouts for 2006 US team. And I went out there. I thought I played pretty well. I didn't, I didn't know much about it. And then I was sitting at lunch and a friend of mine, Ryan Mollett, who was, he had played on the 2002 team. He was talking and he didn't realize I was one person away because you're sitting like cafeteria style. So there's one person between. He's like, yeah, I got no shot at this. And whoever he was sitting with, so what do you mean? He's like, you see the way Sweeney's playing? And like, this is the guy I looked up to. He's like, oh, they're going to take him, no doubt. And I was like, okay. So now I'm starting to get some respect from someone that I revered and that I think is a baller. And Ryan was a baller. And I was like, ooh, that became a little bit of like a drug. You know what I mean? And I was like, I want more of that. So in that respect, like, yeah, I guess maybe I would have enjoyed that attention, but it wasn't the attention so much because they weren't announcing it or writing articles about it. It was just like, I knew they respected me and I knew I had made a dent. I was only on year 3 in the league 2. It was after my second year. So the tryout, I was like, okay, I like this. Like I'm starting to build something here and people are starting to recognize it. So let's see where else I can take this. Let's keep going.
So Kyle, that irrational confidence, did you always have it at the level and where did it come from?
I don't know. I really don't know where it came from. I think that's the type of thing that people say, the craziest competitors, you can't teach that to them. Like you can't teach Kobe Bryant to be crazy like that. He just was. And I don't know. So I don't have a good answer because my father is not incredibly competitive like that. Played college sports, coached college sports. He's a competitive guy in the sense of, he wanted more for his family, but he doesn't have that crazy dog in him of like, hey, let's go, whatever we're doing, we're competing at it. And I've had that since I was a little kid.
Got it. And you didn't have the platform, but you go on and create, without a doubt, a top 5 brand in lacrosse and Maverick. Could you share that story a little bit?
Sure.
Because
sure.
there was a different landscape.
There was, yes. And that's a little bit so John Gagliardi is the founder and he built out a team and it was the very early stages. He was just starting to raise funding for it. He had the name in his head, was still working, hadn't really fleshed out the branding, and he started to put together a team that he wanted to build it with. So I took a huge risk. I had a secure, salary job working, wearing a suit every day for a public company in Manhattan in financial services. And I just took a risk and said, yeah, this is something I want to do. I talked to someone who I take a lot of decent, I lean on when I need advice from him. And he had played college lacrosse and D3 college lacrosse, but just a really smart guy. I still talk to him all the time. And he said, he's like, well, let's think about this, Kyle. If you don't take this opportunity, will it be there again in the future? I said, it's unlikely. He said, what you're in right now, if you take this opportunity and fail, will you have an opportunity to come back there? And I said, yes, not at the same level. I'm going to have to probably, but don't you think you'll be able to overcome that? And so he was leading me to the answer that I ultimately wanted, to be honest. So I left and jumped in with Maverick, and had no background in consumer goods, had no background in sourcing materials, sourcing anything, but somewhat of that irrational confidence. And Gags is the same way. John's like, well, we'll figure it out. We can do this. Well, honestly, if you looked at the two of us, three of us, the four of us, all of us, Mike Springer, J.J. Albert, Billy Pim, Paul Carcaterra, if you looked at all of us and put us in a room, like, someone said, why do you guys think you can do this? Not one of you has background in this. I kind of wish we could go back in time and I'd take someone and walk in and have that conversation. I'd all sit at the conference room like, why do you guys think you can do this? And the answer would have just been like, because we know we can. That's it. None of us said, because here's why. Because I've got a buddy. My dad did this. No, there was no reason whatsoever. It was just a bunch of dudes that had played pro lacrosse or still were being like, because we can. Because everything we put our mind to in life, we figure out how to get done, and we do.
Sure.
So that's why. It's almost like the Robin Williams line in Good Will Hunting. It's like, yeah, well, that's the easy one. I'd choose the belt. He goes, no, I choose the wrench. He goes, fuck him. That's why. Right. And that's kind of why. Like, why? Because fuck you. That's why. Because we can do this.
Right.
You know why? Because you said I can't. Because you said I can't. I guarantee we can do it. And we could. And it was hard. It was really, really hard. It was hard for a lot of reasons. John didn't pay himself for like the first 4 years. I was making very, very minimal money. Then we got to a point where we weren't paying ourselves because it was a cash flow. We were doing well, but it was a cash flow situation. We had new employees. We had to pay employees, so we wouldn't pay ourselves. It was hard. Very, very, very hard.
So how'd you get through that? That's where I wanted to go next. Like, because everybody sees Kyle Sweeney in the introduction. It's like, here's this, high and mighty, very successful champion. Could you go into the lowlights, whether it's in lacrosse or Maverick?
Sure. Well, I could talk about lacrosse for sure, but I feel like I've done plenty of that. So with Maverick, there were some times when you looked at it and you said, a less confident person would look at it and would probably say, this isn't going to work. We're at the end of the road here. We just got to call it. And then there's people like us that said, okay, no, that we see signs of ability here, and it's going to be hard. I know it's going to be hard, and we're going to do some hard things like go raise more money. Raising more money. People think like if you don't understand entrepreneurship, raising money means you go ask your friends for it. Like people are like, how'd you raise money? It's like that's not raising money. Isn't like okay, Kickstarter, crowdfunding. That's not real. Raising money is like, hey, Mark, would you be willing to invest $100,000 in our business for this stake of equity? Right. And, you go to people who financially can do it, of course. But if we fail, I'm taking you with me. I lost your money. Like if this whole thing failed and I lost my time, energy, and John's money and all that, if I failed, I failed. It's okay. But now I'm going to take your money with me. Wow. Right. So that's hard. So that's where a lot of people aren't willing to take those type risks. And we, again, with the irrational confidence, we just all looked at each other and we were like, we can do this. Like there's signs here. There's growth. There's signs. We'll take this risk. And so there were some low spots. And personally, financially, I was young, living in Manhattan. Fortunately, lacrosse, I was playing in the NLL and the MLL. So I had decent supplemental income. I was able to do it, but it wasn't glorious. Trust me, I know my buddies that worked in finance, and it was just different. It was different, right? Like we were in a different spot financially. But it was hard. But anything you do that's going to have a positive result is likely going to be hard.
Yeah,
it is.
Kyle, one of the things that I'm always saying to clients, because the mental game is really about controlling the controllables, is that you should always be focusing on improve rather than prove. And then you come in here and you say, no, it's about proving to myself and to other people. But I think this mixture of both, of you wanting to get better, wanting to get better, wanting to get better, and having that underlying fire, because you could play great lacrosse and still be told that you're not somebody by somebody else, right? And I think that you're not in control of that proof, but I think the mixture of both, I'm jumping on your side of the bandwagon, that it's improve and prove when you're going after these sort of things. So you guys go out and you raise more money. Could you put a bow on that story? You go out in the low times and raise money?
Well, yeah, we raised more money. We took risks on product line extensions, meaning adding different products that we didn't previously have. We also got smarter, right? We weren't just a bunch of lacrosse guys. We're highly educated guys. We had Syracuse, Georgetown, Hopkins, and Virginia grads, and Providence, all in the mix. It's, we weren't a bunch of slapdicks not knowing what we're doing, right? So we learned, we got smart, we tightened up some things. I reeled John in on the spending. John is one of the greatest marketers I've ever met in my life. John Gagliardi. He has a natural gift for marketing and advertising. So I would constantly reel him in on the spending, and that would be, and then we get to a place where we were starting to do okay. And we were like, Billy and I would look at each other doing the finances, like, wow, we broke even. Look at that. We didn't lose any money, And then we started making better products, started making better hires, being smarter with our designs, developments, really driving down cost of goods sold, everything. We got tighter and tighter and tighter, and it just got better and better and better. And with that, we got traction. And so there's no real great bow on it, other than the fact that we were in a place where we had made enough noise overseas in factories that Bauer Hockey, the hockey brand, they were losing manufacturing capacity, meaning that they would go to the factory and say, hey, we need you to make gloves for us 8 months out of the year. And they were scaling back, saying, hey, we can only give you 7 months this year. And Bauer's the largest hockey player in the game at the time. They're like, why? Like, well, we're making this new lacrosse brand. And next thing you know, Bauer's like, okay, well, let's look who they are. And that's who we got acquired by. We sold to private equity, which is ultimately owned by Bauer Hockey. And we got rolled into Bauer Hockey, and we worked there. I worked there for 6 years. So that's the bow at the end, is that, we did have an exit. Great. We did sell the company. It was great for everyone involved. And for me, it was a financial reward, of course, but I learned so much in the subsequent 6 years. Well, if you put the whole thing together, it's 11 years. I learned so much about business and building businesses and running businesses and, managing people, budgets, finances, everything that's involved with being a business owner. It made me more valuable for every endeavor I work on in the future.
Awesome. And I want to stay on what you've learned, because right before we, started this podcast, and as we were getting prepared for it, one of the things you did want to talk about was how your perspective has evolved. And you said to me that the way you handle things now is much different than you did when you were younger. And I'm chomping at the bit to know what kind of areas you're talking about that you do have a different perspective on now.
Yeah. So when I will credit a lot of it towards the building your own business, and I will credit a lot of it towards my childhood and having siblings, and not everything always going right for you, right? Not everything is always going to go right. So it's a challenge that my wife and I have now with our children. We try to let them fix their own mistakes, or when something is hard, figure out how to work out of it. It's a very different time now where people just have grown up in environments where there was a problem, someone else fixed it. Okay. Well, when you're running the company, or when my brother and I are on a road trip and we have a flat tire back in 1998, there was no one there to fix it. We'd have cell phones, we didn't have any money. We weren't calling AAA. So you had to figure out how to do it. So with that, you gain a lot of perspective on like what's important and what matters, and how serious something is. If everything is if people say like if everything's a rush, nothing's a rush, I look at it more like if everything is an emergency, then nothing's an emergency to me. Right. So when
The way
you know,
it's been said to me is it's the difference between inconvenience and a tragedy.
right, that's a great one. I'm going to use that. So what I'm seeing now in my life now running this business, the new business is uh I'll have these younger project managers or engineers or whoever it is working. They will come to me with a calamity, and I would just be as calm as you could ever imagine. And it's not because I am innately better at it than them. I'm not. It's because I'm older, and with age comes all this perspective. And I understand that. I think right now, I know that right now you believe this is a massive calamity and it's catastrophic and there's a problem. And we could do two things. We could sit there and worry about how big of a problem was, or we could start figuring out how to fix it. So, and I think having children helps that too. Right? Things that you thought mattered or were inconveniences to you at the time, none of that matters. When you have children, like you'll find out that like it's okay. Like my wife still doesn't understand that my daughter rolled out of bed early when she was young, falls right out of bed, hits her chin, bleeding everywhere. And I just walked in. I was like, okay. I was like, and the other two there, I'm going to go take her to the hospital. And she didn't say anything. She didn't say anything at night, whatever. The next day, she's like, how are you so calm with that? Now, keep in mind, my wife is this beautiful Italian woman from Union County, and she's never had a stitch in her whole life. She has never had stitches. She never had a broken bone. Well, she broke her toe, but so I said, she said, why are you so calm with this? And I said, because I've had it happen before. I've done it. So I had perspective of this is not that big of a deal, right? This is not, it's stitches in a 4-year-old's face and her chin, and it's gonna be okay, and we're gonna take care of it. We're not gonna get to meltdown mode right now, because if we're gonna melt down over this, what's gonna happen when there's a real problem? Because this is not a real problem. This is something we could solve. So that to me is what I mean when I was talking about the perspective and why it mattered to me. It's
Sure.
and specifically when you relate it to playing, I mentioned earlier, I don't know if we were on or off at that time, but where you think the whole world revolves around you, like, you're so in it. You're so in it that you think everyone's watching you. Like, for example, I remember this happening where my college buddies were like all on a trip or something. And obviously I couldn't go, it was in season, or something was going on. I don't remember exactly what it was. And they were like, wait, where are you now, by the way, Kyle? Like, in my head at the time, I'm like, well, they must be like following where I go every game. They're probably checking the standings, watching. You're young, right? And they're like, where are you? I'm like, I'm in Calgary. They're like, okay, all right. Well, you should be here in Phoenix with us. And it's like, that's it. Like, but as you get older, you realize like no one else cares really. It's not. It's like not that no one cares. That's not the right way to say it. But it gives you perspective that what really only matters are the people that you truly care about and what's going on with you right now. Anything in the past doesn't matter. And thinking about what's going on in the future, that matters in some respect, but just be present, be on it right now, because this is all that matters. So that's the type of perspective that I've gained with having children, basically bluntly messing up a bunch of stuff my whole life and figuring out how to fix it.
And that goes back to the point where that cognitive dissonance come in. In order for you to understand when you have to lose, in order for you to understand the fixing it, there has to be problems that you have solved in the past. Something that I'm pushing almost every single time I speak to people about mental performance, because I heard Novak Djokovic say it on his 60 Minutes. Greatest definition of mental strength I've heard is not staying in your emotions too long. So that individual that comes to you with the calamity and, we could worry about it. How long do you want to worry about it? Do you want to worry about it for, the next few minutes or the next few days, the next few weeks? But we got to get to solution focus. And I think they're understanding that you're not necessarily in control of your emotions and you have to get through that emotion as quickly as possible. And that's where your calmness and your wisdom and your perspective has come from. one little interjection that I would give is I try to talk about humility as much as we can, and that's what comes to mind when your friends don't know where you are in Calgary. It's not thinking less of yourself, but thinking about yourself less and being part of something bigger. And I think that's an experience that we get when we're playing for teams, and what Lacrosse Network has done for us. And then how this turns into a question for you is, you brought up when you said Uric, and I jotted it down. You said he was very real, and it seems like that's fleeting. And I want to go back to that because I do agree with you. And I would say, could you be very real and give advice to a younger athlete that's going to listen to this, a high school athlete or a college athlete that's listening in to, arguably the best long stick midfielder that ever played the game? What advice would you give to them in terms of perspective that they should know?
So in regards to it being real is, ask people that you trust what they think of your ability. Ask people that won't lie to you what they think of your ability. And then don't ask them about your ability. Ask them what you're not good at. Meaning what you need room for, what you need to improve on, right? So you don't want to hear someone continue to tell you the things that you already know. You know that you have these abilities. That's why you're in this position, okay? You know that you might be bigger and strong, whatever it might be that gives you an advantage at this point right now. I don't want to hear any of that. It doesn't help. It's not helpful. Just like inversely in the emergency, panicking and getting loud and screaming, that doesn't help. It actually adds to the chaos. So don't tell me anything good, right? Like, don't tell me if you want a real answer, right? I'm not saying that there's no value in praise, or telling my son that I'm proud of him for he just was voted class president, right? That's awesome. I'm really proud of him, right? But like, I'm not gonna tell him every day that he's very gregarious and personable. Like, he knows that. That's how he got to that position. But I got some things that he does have to work on. Now, he doesn't ask me, but if he were to, I would say, well, Owen, your organization is tragic. Your ability to stay on task could use a lot of improvement. So what I would say to the young, and so on and so forth, what I would say to the young athlete is, don't even ask what they think about your game. Just ask, what do I got to get? What do I have to get better at? And pro sports are blunt for the most part, right? Like, you're like, I do see in lacrosse, not everyone is as real, and someone will talk around you a little bit, but it's nice to have those people. Tony Resch, I spoke about him at length in my Hall of Fame speech. He was also another real one in terms of, like, there was no, again, you never walked out of a conversation with Tony. It was like, hold on, what did he want me to do? What exactly was that supposed to be? It wasn't like that. That's just not who Tony is.
Right.
You played for him at some point, right? Or no?
No, I mean, Pat Resch is one of my best buddies in the league, and
Yeah.
I know him very well.
Oh, I thought Tony might have been with you. So anyway, I thought maybe the Bayhawks at some point. Either way, yeah, Tony's like my idol. Tony's the guy who I strive to be like. Great dude, and he was the same thing. So you're getting to a point where, back to the kids, if you want them, find someone who's real, who's going to tell you the truth, and say, what do I need to get better at?
Right.
Because eventually you're going to get somewhere where you do run into someone. And if you have had no experience with that, and someone's going to tell you the truth, oh baby, it's going to hit you hard.
Yeah.
It's going to hit you hard. Like, if someone can't tell, if someone don't tell you straight up, like, you're not good enough to do this because you've been in an environment where people keep telling you that you're good enough to do it. When you get that news, oh my gosh, it's going to hit you harder than anything that ever hit you in life. And then, are you going to be able to rebound from that? I don't know.
Sure.
So,
and it's a mixture of what we talked about earlier in terms of the words of encouragement and the praise mixed in with that organization and betterment. I think you strike in my mind this truth seeking, and I love that. Ben Ives, episode 6, said that search for information rather than affirmation. I love that. Anson Dorrance, UNC women's soccer coach, said average athletes want to be left alone. Good athletes want to be coached. Great athletes want the truth. I love that. That's always resonated with me. Kyle, you talked about, and we will get to that transition away from lacrosse, but what about the back end of your pro career? Longevity, right? You played, what's the average, career span for
I
a
don't
pro
know.
lacrosse player? 3, 4, 5, something along those lines. But you go on to play for 14, 15. What do you think led to your longevity?
I think it all goes back to the discipline and the scheduling and the ability to stay on track and do the same things. Being consistent is a being consistent is something that I feel like is overlooked so often. It's just not talked, maybe not overlooked. It's just not talked about enough, right? Like being great for a second doesn't do anybody good. Like you have to be consistent. Like if I'm so into parenting, obviously, because it's my day. Like, but if your kid makes their bed one day, it doesn't matter. Even if it's perfect, it doesn't matter. What's the point? Be consistent. So for me, it was all based about being able to do it and follow that routine and follow that schedule. And that's why I talked about like schedules matter. I tell this people at work, like you have to build, I'm not going to micromanage it. You have to build your own schedule. Like you have to figure out what works. Like there's times that you get things done during the day. Like you can't just do things haphazardly. My brother had a huge problem with this. And I was like, let me ask you guys a question. Everyone brush their teeth? Everyone brushes their teeth? Yes, everyone brushes their teeth. Okay. When do you do it? In the morning. Okay. If you do it in the morning, you do it every day, right? Yes. Like, all right. Next week, just brush your teeth at some point through the day. You won't do it, right? You brush your teeth in the morning for a reason. It's a schedule. It sets the schedule and keeps you moving. If you don't have systems in place, and everyone's system is going to be different, if you don't have systems in place of when you do things, then everything is just a big jumble of to-do lists and tasks. And without any sequence or order, you're going to be way less efficient. Way less efficient. So if you wake up, you brush your teeth, you make your bed, you get dressed, right? There's an order to living, to getting yourself going. So why would you get to work or get to whatever you're doing and just be like, all right, it's not really scheduled. These are 6 things I got to do. I'll do it in this order, maybe. Who knows? We'll see. We'll figure it out, right?
Yeah.
No, that's not the way it works. Set a schedule and set a routine. And for me, the training part of it, which contributed to my longevity, training and then diet. Not that this is pre like sports science. What was whatever. It was right when it was coming along. I didn't eat organic or anything like that, but I knew what I couldn't eat. I knew what I couldn't drink, and I knew what I did like to eat, and I knew what I did like to drink. And you had to keep that in moderation and not excess. Otherwise, you have a problem. I mean, I live by this kind of like this general 80-20 rule of like, do the right thing 80% of the time. You can kind of fuck off for 20% of the time. And the way that works for me is with my diet, my, any alcohol consumption is Monday morning, you wake up, you're on track, healthy eating, no alcohol. And that gets all the way through, it's inclusive of Friday at lunch. So I have to eat a healthy lunch today. I will. And then for the weekend, I kind of do whatever I want. So when you stay in between these lines pretty like so rigidly during the week, when you get outside the lines, meaning the weekends, you don't get over here. You kind of drift over. Like I don't sit down on Friday night just because it's like, all right, well, I can do whatever I want now. Gallon of ice cream. No, like you've built this structure and you're gonna waver. Like if we go out to dinner now, yeah, I might order dessert. Who knows, right? Oh, get crazy, right? So but you're not gonna like go off the handle. So for me, that was it. It's like staying in routine over and over and over matters. And then when you get old and you're washed up like me, you do have to, okay, so well, when do I work out? Maybe I'll do it. No, I do it at the same time. Like I was at the gym this morning at 5:30 with the dudes. We had this whole group, boom, roast through it. We don't just arbitrarily change the time. No, it starts at 6 on the dot. Boom. It's over here. Like you have to have structure. And that I feel like is something that I'm really trying to, press upon the kids I coach, the people I'm kind of mentor some kids locally, try and help them with their life decisions and coaching or college choices. And then my own family. Like we have to have a system to what we do.
Love that.
Systems matter. Systems matter.
Couldn't agree more with you. Dr. Rob Gilbert on the sports psychology front has been doing a 2 to 5 minute motivational speech voicemail. It's called the Success Hotline every day since November of 1992. And his main ethos is it's easier to do something every day than is every once in a while. And he doesn't
That's
even
right.
think about it. He wakes up, puts out a new message up there, and it kind of is like brushing his teeth for him. And transitioning into the last transition, I would add this question to you as you answer it. So you retire in 2018. You move on to Allied Geothermal. And what do you know now that you wish you knew when you were a young pro or maybe in your 20s and 30s?
I think this all comes with perspective. I think I would have appreciated it more. I don't think I appreciated it as much when I was in it. I don't want to say I took it for granted, but yeah, I'm just gonna say I didn't appreciate it. Like I didn't really appreciate what we were doing and the reason why I know I didn't appreciate it is because so I still have some of my best friends or dudes I played with. Brian Splina, Mike Springer, Ryan Boyle was one of my groomsmen, inducted me into the Hall of Fame. Brian, all these just different people that I've got these really strong relationships with still. I didn't appreciate that we got to spend so much time together then. And the reason why I know
Hmm.
that is because I miss it now.
Hmm.
And I feel like if you appreciate something while you're there, you don't miss it. So, like for example, we went on vacation this February, and it was one of the best trips we've got to do with our family. Stayed in a beautiful, everything is perfect. I really appreciated it while I was there. I really did. So I don't miss it now. I don't miss it at all. I got it.
Hmm.
It was awesome. I was there. I appreciated it. But I feel like if you don't appreciate something, you will miss it later down the road. It's probably in relationships with significant others. Because if you can't be present and then appreciate it in the time you were there, what was the point of being there?
Yeah.
What's the point? Like we're doing something not just to do it so I can remember it later. I want to do it because I want to enjoy it.
Yeah.
Right? Like you go out to a nice dinner, like let's not scarf it down so we can read the reviews on it tomorrow and see how good.
Yeah.
No, let's enjoy it. Let's be there.
Yeah.
Let's eat it and
Yeah.
appreciate it while you're having it.
I think people are going to think that I told you to say that because this podcast is called Grateful and Full of Greatness. And I guess I was thinking about the last question I want to ask you, and I think you nailed a lot on the greatness side in terms of discipline, scheduling, and being consistent. Going back to my one season with you uh, with the Bayhawks, I obviously still fondly remember. I'm a young rookie. You're in your last year. We had just played the Boston Cannons, and then we drove, for a few hours back down to New Jersey. And you've always been sharing wisdom and cared for the younger guys and the people in your locker room. So I guess I would ask you a more open-ended question, which is there anything on this podcast that you would like to leave as a message to either the younger lacrosse player, even if they're a pro, that was the rookie just like me, or something that you have the platform to say it. So, what kind of lesson would you leave?
Sure, I wasn't prepped for that, but I'll take a stab at it, which is that when I hear you say something that I was impressionable on you when you were a rookie, well, I think back to who was impressionable upon me when I was a rookie. So what I would say to them, and it was Roy Colsey, I told Roy how important he was, and he didn't. He was like, I didn't even realize I made that much of an impression on you, and I was like, it's okay, you did. You were super important to. You showed me how to be a professional, and then in the NLL it was like Jake Berge and some of those other guys. But so what I would say to the younger guy now is, what you're doing does matter. So pay attention to what you're doing. Pay attention to how you're treating people, right? If you care about your legacy, and it's tough to care about your legacy when you're in it, right? But if you do and you have an appreciation for people, pay attention to that now because people are formulating opinions of you, and this is the chance for you to have a relationship with someone. And then as you age, the way you treat the younger guys, like that matters. Like you are affecting someone else's life. Like you are, or some maybe someone's life, and some that might be a little dramatic. You're affecting someone else's career. You are helping shape their view of where they're going to take what they're doing. And you know, I'm not saying that it's your duty to try and encourage someone who's basically trying to come take your job, but if you truly care about like who you are and bettering yourself and where the sport's supposed to go, then you should take care of the people that are there, right? Because if you don't care about your own legacy, then you sure as hell don't care about the legacy of this sport and where this thing goes. So I
Yeah.
don't know what you do care about, right? Like, so
Yeah.
care about your legacy and what matters. And yeah, like to me, that was it. Like some of the messages I got when I got into the Hall of Fame were more meaningful to me than like from people that I didn't play, that I barely even remember. Like I'll I'll send you one. I'll text you one and you'll appreciate it. But it was another Ivy League guy. And it took me a minute to like even remember who he was, to be honest. And it was just important to me to know that I must have been in year like 10, maybe. I don't know. And it just mattered that like it made me feel good to know that I wasn't a dick. Right. Like I might have been hard, and I was definitely hard on these guys. Like, I was hard. I was demanding of our teammates, but I wasn't. I made a good enough impression on him and shared enough wisdom with him for a guy that I don't think ever even played a game. And that to me is like what it was all about. Like, who cares about all stars and shit? I mean, that matters too. But now that we're older, none of it matters. Back to my whole thing about perspective. Like, none of it matters. Like, how many rings do I have? How many rings do you have? Right? I'm not asking you to answer that number. How many do I have? Who cares? Who cares? Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't, none of that matters at all. We walk outside right now, none of that matters. No one's going to think I'm a better person because I've got more rings. And no one's going to think you're a lesser person because you don't. And I don't even know. You might have more rings than me. I haven't kept track because it doesn't matter. It doesn't at all.
So,
It doesn't.
so Kyle, I'll tell you a story. Maybe you could share it with your 9-year-old lacrosse player. There's a difference between complaining, compliant, and committed. You know, in the 1700s, there's three bricklayers. Three bricklayers are working on a hot summer day. And the first one speaks up and goes, "Isn't this terrible? It's so hot out. We have a 12-hour shift." And that's complaining. And the second one goes, just get it done. We're going to be here and we have a lunch in an hour. And then the last guy, they can't even break his attention and his focus. And he says, and he lays the brick perfectly. And he says, "One day this is going to be a cathedral." And I love that because that's the committed person to laying the brick perfectly how he could, right? And when you talk about these individuals, whoever you were speaking to, about doing it as if it does matter because it does, right? And in the same breath, it doesn't matter about the rings, but it matters about the legacy that you leave. And I think, I don't know how much you remembered that car ride with me, but it was so impressionable on me. And I think we're always having those impressions every single day, those ripple effects that we don't even know. And you've had that effect on me. You've had it at those people at the Hall of Fame speech. And I just want to thank you for being so authentic, being a role model for me and other people. And obviously, thank you for making the time to come on here.
My pleasure, man. I appreciate it. I love what you're doing. It was great seeing you. It was awesome to have you impose some of your wisdom on my son. That was really, really cool. I love interacting with other highly motivated, highly intelligent people. So this was a joy for me. And, I'll continue to listen to you. I love it.
Thanks, Kyle.